Oh, hello. Come in. Take a seat. And welcome to the Tainted Tavern. Can I get you a drink?
Come into the Tainted Tavern, come sit a while for free. We talk about our musings and devices we've been using.
Hello and welcome to the Tainted Tavern. In this video I want to talk about the soundtrack album for Baz Luhrmann's film Epic. That's Elvis Presley in concert. I've ordered the vinyl copy of this because I just feel Elvis must be listened to in vinyl. But it hasn't come yet, but I did get the CD, Epic, Elvis Presley in concert. So it's basically a soundtrack from the absolutely astounding movie. It comes with a nice little booklet, there's some lovely stills in there. Now this soundtrack, the way it's put together, it takes something from of a leaf out of the Beatles mix that Giles Martin did several years back for the Circle of Soul Love Beatles show. And the way that was done is several songs were edited in together, certain sound effects were added to make it more modern, and they've done that. So the running order on this CD is Can't Help Falling in Love, although it's not the entire song. It mirrors what happened in the opening of the film, where you get a ghostly kind of Elvis voice coming out of the ether, which is very reminiscent of the echo effects on his original singles that he cut with Sam Phillips back in Sun Records. Then you get also Sprach, which I can't pronounce, but it's basically an American trilogy. But again, this is only the music, as this clip is worked into the album itself. You've got Tiger Man, and then a song which is listed here as Wearing That Nightlife Look. Now, two songs are used here, and expertly mixed in together, I must say. So one is Wearing That Loved On Look, and the other is Nightlife, and the way these two songs work together is excellent. This really is a good soundtrack, and if you've seen the film, it takes you back to the movie, to the experience of watching the movie. We've then got Hound Dog, Polk Salad Annie. Polk Salad Annie is an absolutely fantastic performance. Brilliant, brilliant. You've Lost That Loving Feeling. Little Sister Get Back, of course. Little Sister and the Beatles song Get Back, in which Elvis has merged these two together, because a lot of, and it was a criticism that came from me once when because I was a massive Elvis fan when I was a kid, and then I went off Elvis. I found that the Elvis stuff was a bit too ridiculous, and Elvis didn't write his own music, of course. That kind of bothered me for a long period, especially when I tended to be listening to bands like the Beatles, and I was getting into Bob Dylan with this amazing songwriting. So because Elvis didn't write his own songs, that kind of, in my eyes at that time, and I was wrong to feel that, but in my eyes at the time it made Elvis feel like a lesser artist. But the fact is, when Elvis was first on the scene, singers writing their own songs was quite rare. But what Elvis did was he interpreted the songs, and no one interpreted a song like Elvis did. I've got a new love for Elvis now. I'm a born-again Elvis fan, I suppose. After that, you've got Burning Love, Never Been to Spain, Love Me, Can't Stop Loving You, Are You Lonesome Tonight, Always on My Mind, How Great Thou Art. Elvis's performance of Great Thou Art used here is absolutely fantastic. I think it comes from, the version on here comes from the CBS TV special, Elvis in Concert. The album of that is very hard to get now, and that was released posthumously after Elvis died. But that performance was just stunning. And Elvis, even in his later period when he was overweight and things were taking a toll on him, he was overworked. He shouldn't have done those last few concerts. He should have been caring more for his health during 1976 and 1977. But even at that time, at the lowest point in his career, Elvis could still hit amazing vocalize. So, Oh Happy Day, A Big Uncle Love, Bridge Over Troubled Waters, In the Ghetto, Walk a Mile in My Shoes, Suspicious Minds, Bring the Curtain Down, Can't Help Falling in Love, American David, which again is another mix, A Change of Reality, Do You Miss Me, and the last track on here is Don't Fly Away. This is an absolutely excellent album, and I can't wait to get the vinyl. Not because I think vinyl sounds better, it's just that I was brought up in the vinyl era, and when I was a kid and I had a few Elvis LPs, they were vinyl, so I preferred to listen to Elvis on vinyl. All I will say is that the movie, and you can check out my review on this channel of the movie Epic Elvis Presley in Concert, I thought was absolutely amazing. It was fantastic, it was brilliant. You can check out the review, but the CD, or the soundtrack rather, is fitting as well. It's a brilliant album. I'll wait for the vinyl to come, but I am spinning this CD constantly. I want to show you a few of my Elvis vinyls now. I've got a lot of Elvis, a heck of a lot of Elvis. I've got a mass of Elvis CDs, but I've only got several Elvises on vinyl, and I picked these up over the last couple of years, some in charity shops, second-hand shops, some brand new reissues off Amazon. So this is my vinyl copy of Elvis's first album, Elvis Presley. This is on Rumble Records because I believe this is actually out of copyright now. But it's a great cut of what is a fantastic album. This may be one of the most important rock and roll albums ever released. It's brilliant. Running Order, Blue Suede Shoes, I'm Counting on You, I Got a Woman, One Sided Love Affair, I Love You Because, Just Because, Side 2, Tutti Frutti, Trying to Get to You, I'm Gonna Sit Right Down and Cry, I'll Never Let You Go, Blue Moon and Honey. The Elvis's version of Blue Moon on You, which with that slapback echo effect that Sam Phillips did, it's absolutely amazing. And interestingly, this album opens up with Blue Suede Shoes. Now, when this album was first released, Blue Suede Shoes, of course, Carl Perkins had just had a massive hit with it, with his original version. It was Carl Perkins, wasn't it? Alexa, who originally wrote Blue Suede Shoes?
Blue Suede Shoes was originally written and recorded by Carl Perkins in 1955.
Carl Perkins.
It became a rock and roll classic and influenced many artists over the years.
Bit of a senior moment there. This one then, this is an original album from back in the day. It's on the RCA label. It's a date with Elvis. I picked this up somewhere in some sort of, the label on it is RCA International, so this would have been a British release. It's kind of a mixture of some of his old Sun cuts and some of the newer stuff of that period when this album was first released. So we've got Blue Moon of Kentucky, Young and Beautiful. Young and Beautiful, of course, comes from Jailhouse Rock, I think. Baby I Don't Care, Milk Cow Boogie, another Sun cut. Baby Let's Play House, again, that's another Sun cut. The Sun cuts on Europe are marked with Sun Studios, 46 Union Avenue, Memphis. So the Blue Moon of Kentucky year comes all the way from July 1954. Milk Cow's Boogie is from December 1954. Baby Let's Play House is again a Sun record, that's early in 1955. We've got Good Rockin' Tonight, September 54. It's So Strange, which is recorded in a Radio Recorder Studio. This was when Elvis would have been signed to RCA, and this was January the 19th, 1957. We're Gonna Move is from August 1956. I Want to Be Free is May 1957. I Forgot to Remember to Forget, which is the final Sun track on here, and this was recorded in mid-1955. To give you some aspects of the age of these recordings, at least from my perspective, from a personal perspective, I'm 60 years old now, and that song there was recorded a full 10 years before I was born. I've also got this, which is Elvis in Blue Hawaii, kind of a guilty pleasure this. It's on blue vinyl, which is rather attractive. Blue Hawaii, this is not something that I would consider top tier Elvis. I mean, most of his movies, songs weren't, to my opinion, top tier Elvis. But we have got some great traction here. You've got Blue Hawaii, you've got Can't Help Falling in Love, you've got Rockahula Baby, and of course Hawaiian Wedding Song is on here, which is quite fun. And it's also a lovely cover on this vinyl with stills from the movie on the back. Then we've got another, this is an original again, UK album, Elvis for Everyone. You're Cheating Art, Finders Keepers, For the Millionth Time, Forget Me Never, I Met Her Today, In My Way, Memphis, Tennessee, Santa Lucia, Sound Device, Summer Kisses, Tomorrow Night, When It Rains It Really Pours. I can't find a date on here. Oh yeah, this was released in the UK, at least this version of this. I don't know if it was also released earlier, but this one was from 1980. And it's on the RCA International label. Then what I often think maybe Elvis's best album. This album was made, it was the first album he made after coming out of the army, and this is a modern issue, but it's on the RCA Victor label, and this is Elvis is Back. I've got a brilliant CD of this as well from Follow That Dream, which is multiple discs, and it's got a lot of the outtakes and singles from this session. This album is absolutely excellent. This is mature Elvis. It's just brilliant. On the back, which is how the original album came out, it says Elvis is back, and it's given us bonus GI snapshots for our collection, because of course Elvis had just come out of the army when this was brought out. Side 1, Make Me Know It, Fever, The Girl of My Best Friend, I'll Be Home Again, Dirty Dirty Feeling, Thrills of Your Love. Dirty Dirty Feeling, I think, is an excellent song, written by Lieber and Stroller, who did a lot of songs for Elvis before falling out with the Colonel. Soldier Boy, Side 2, Such a Night, It Feels So Right, Girl Next Door, Went to Walking, Like a Baby, and Reconsider Baby. That's a great album. I also then got 2 modern remix Elvis albums here, which I purchased when they first came out. And this is Elvis with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, so original Elvis tracks mixed in with backing from the Philharmonic Orchestra, and these albums work really well. This is Elvis, The Wonder of You. They're lovely double LP sets, really nicely put together. When did these come out? I believe 2016. So, you know, and of course these albums coincided with Elvis. I'm not sure if it happened in the States, but over here in the UK, an Elvis single went back into the charts around this time, and that was A Little Less Conversation, which comes from one of the movies. You'll have to excuse my lack of knowledge on that offhand. I'd have to look that up. But as I say, I was a massive Elvis fan when I was a kid. And then when I grew older, sort of 13, 14, punk rock came out. Elvis had just died in August 1977, and Elvis became a part of my past. And it's only in recent years that I've started to get back into him, although I have to be honest, I've always had a sneaking admiration for Elvis Presley. There's always been something, a respect, I think, for Elvis, and the CDs that they got of Elvis I bought over the years, you know, so it's just lately that I've really got into Elvis again. This is a second of the Royal Philharmonic albums, and this is If I Can Dream. With the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, Side A, Burning Love, It's Now or Never, Love Me Tender, Fever. Side 2, Bridge Over Troubled Water, And the Grass Won't Pay No Mind, You've Lost That Loving Feeling. Side 3, There's Always Me, Can't Help Falling in Love, In the Ghetto, Or Great Thou Art. And Side 4 is Steamroller Blues, An American Trilogy, and If I Can Dream. These really are good albums. If I remember rightly, the linear notes in these albums, Priscilla said Elvis would have loved to have recorded with the Royal Philharmonic. Yeah, here's Priscilla's words. When record producer Don Reedman approached me about wanting to record Elvis with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, I thought that would be an album Elvis always wanted to do. He loved the big sound of fullness of an orchestra. If he had his way, he would have had a 60-piece orchestra on the stage performance, but he already had his TCB, of course, Taking Care of Business Band for rock and roll and country. So anyway, that's just Priscilla's words. I've read a lot on the internet because, as I say, I've got into Elvis a lot more lately, started really rediscovering him, and I think that Priscilla's been a bit controversial over recent years with Elvis fans because of some of the things she said about Elvis. But anyway, I don't know. Now the next album I'm going to show you is a really interesting album. Just taking a sip of my scotch. Now back in the day, in the 70s, when Elvis was still alive and just after he died, because when Elvis passed away there was a massive interest in his music. But even prior to his death, these albums were being released. Over here in the UK, Woolworths, which of course is gone now, They used to have their own budget record label called Camden. I don't know if Camden was actually owned by Woolworths, but it was the budget label that Woolworths used to use. And this album came out on Camden. It's marked on the back RCA Camden. Now these are cheap records. These used to cost £1, maybe £2, whatever it was back in the day. And they were just tracks put off various Elvis albums and unreleased tracks put onto an album to make up a running order. Usually they weren't that good. But this, by default, is something of a concept album by accident. The last song on here, though, is Old Shep, and that's totally out of place because it's a different Elvis to the rest of the tracks on here. The rest of these tracks on here come from a period in, I think, about 1972, when Elvis and Priscilla had separated. Priscilla had moved out, so they were living alone. And although, as I've said previously, Elvis didn't write his own songs, he did interpret songs. And the first track on here, which gives us the title, Separate Ways, was written by Red West, who was, of course, a very good friend with Elvis, and he was fully aware of what was going on in Elvis's own life at that particular time. And the song goes, I see a change has come into our lives, it's not the same as it used to be. And it's just a lovely performance by Elvis. It's really heartfelt, and you can see that he is picturing his marriage breakup, and of course because there's another line in the song where he goes, one day, about the little girl, about Lisa, and it says, one day she will understand why your mom and dad are not together. It's just a fantastic song. And then the songs that were picked to go with that turns it into a sort of concept album, except of course for banging Old Shep at the end. So you've got side one, Separate Ways, Sentimental Me, In My Way, I Met Her Today, What Now, What Next, Where To. They all flow so well. Side two, Always On My Mind, I Slipped, I Stumbled, I Fell, It's So Strange, Forget Me Never. Brilliant, but then it ends with Old Shep, which goes back from the 1950s, recording a different Elvis to the Elvis on this album. It doesn't work. I did my own playlist of this on Amazon, and I took off Old Shep, and instead I put on the Elvis track I'm Leaving, and that really works as a concept album. And I call it Elvis's answer to Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks, and I'm going to make a video about that and give a link to the playlist. But this is a really cool album, and the cover design, you could say it's ugly. It's Elvis superimposed over a motorway, a freeway. I believe that in the US they had a same concept for the cover, but a slightly different one. But I think this is the American cover because these here are all American automobiles. Anyway, I love this album. Okay, I've done a bit of research since mentioning that about the Camden records in my video, the Camden record label, which I thought was owned by Woolworths, and you can forgive me for that misapprehension because they were everywhere in Woolworths back in the day. But RCA actually owned Camden. Camden were designed to release budget record labels, and the Elvis Camden releases became highly collectible, or they have since become highly collectible. Hardcore Elvis fans at the time didn't like them because they were usually made over of leftover tracks, and there was no real thought in the way they were put together, except sometimes, as I said, in the Separate Ways album, it's just an happy accident. But some of them sold millions. And the Colonel, that's Colonel Tom Parker, of course, loved them because they kept Elvis on the record stacks everywhere. The albums are known for their bright covers, dramatic photos, and a very 1970s design style. So unlike a regular album, they were assembled by RCA Records, using existing material, and sometimes you get the same song on one of the Camden records that have already been on several other albums. So in a way, it was kind of seen as a cash cow. But what is interesting is the classic tracks like Burning Love that first appeared on an RCA Camden release, on a budget release. It was one of Elvis's last major hit singles, and yet it first appeared on a Camden album. So The Camden albums are highly collectible in themselves, and I love them because of the nostalgia aspect of them. And it's also worth stating that Camden records, because they were so inexpensive compared to regular albums, they were some people's, especially my generation, growing up in the 70s, you know, with Elvis coming from a generation before. They were our first Elvis albums. Then the next Elvis album, this is a very old copy. The cover's destroyed. This is the first album I ever owned. When I was a kid, I had this for Christmas. Not this particular one. I picked up this particular one later, but I had this album. And again, with the way that RCA Camden didn't fully take care in the placement of the songs. Again, the last track on here is Mama Like the Roses, which kind of stands out against the rest of the songs, which are all Christmas music. But Mama Like the Roses is a lovely little song. So you've got Blue Christmas, Silent Night, White Christmas, Santa Claus is Back in Town, I'll Be On for Christmas, that's side one. Side two there, we've got If Every Day Was Like Christmas, Here Comes Santa Claus, Oh Little Town of Bethlehem, Santa Bring My Baby Back to Me, and then a quick jump then to give us Mama Like the Roses. Another cool thing about these old Camden records is the linear notes on the back. And it says, the King of Rock and Roll is back in town with 10 tracks to make this album a must on everyone's Christmas playlist. The songs are all seasonal, but the artistry of their performance makes them all the year-round favourites. Well, they're not all seasonal because Mama Like the Roses is not. For over 20 years, Elvis Presley records have figured high on the list of presents for Christmas. And in those 20 years, yesterday's teenagers have become today's parents. But their tastes and those of their children don't change. Elvis is still the king. And on this album, we have more than enough proof of why that is so. Listen to him rock his way through Santa Claus is Back in Town, and Santa Bring My Baby Back to Me, and roll his way through Blue Christmas and Here Comes Santa Claus, and then listen to the smooth vocal sincerity of Oh Little Town of Bethlehem and Silent Night. But Elvis's Christmas album is a pretty funky album. Then I've got, this is a modern album, but it's a reissue of the Elvis soundtrack for Jailhouse Rock. And I was right, Young and Beautiful is there with the Jordanaires, which is the song that I mentioned earlier on, it was on one of the other albums. Jailhouse Rock, Young and Beautiful, I Want to Be Free, Don't Leave Me Now, You're So Sweet, Baby, I Don't Care. Treat Me Nice, I Beg of You, Don't Play For Keeps, Shake, Rattle and Roll, Good Rockin' Tonight, I Don't Care If the Sun Don't Shine. Jailhouse Rock, incidentally, the movie in my opinion, is the second best musical film Elvis ever made. I think King Creole slightly tops this, but this is fantastic too. Then I've got another RCA Camden release with a really unwieldy title again. The cover's in a bit of a bad way. I would have one time repaired these with sellotape, but it tends to browse, so I don't. And this is Elvis Sings Hits from his movies plus 2 recent hits. So obviously this came out during Elvis's lifetime. 1972 actually this was released. So on here we've got Down by the Riverside, They Remind Me Too Much of You, Confidence, Frankie and Johnny, Guitar Man, Long-Legged Girl with a Red Dress On, You Don't Know Me, How Would You Like to Be, Big Boss Man, Old MacDonald, and you want Elvis is Old MacDonald's is a bizarre song. Absolutely bizarre. It's the old children's song, Old MacDonald had a farm, but I don't know, it comes from one of his later dreadful movies. But several of the tracks on here, Long-Legged Girl with the Red Dress On, really brilliant. How Would You Like to Be is pretty funky. Down by the Riverside and When the Saint Goes Marching In, Elvis's performance on that, even though that's a movie song, is great. And Guitar Man, of course. Guitar Man's an excellent song. Okay, Elvis Love Songs, which is 20 original songs, including The Wonder View, Suspicious Mind, Would Not, It's Now or Never. This is on the K-Tel label. K-Tel was, I believe, a budget record label during the 70s. This was brought out in 1979, so after Elvis has passed away. Now another album I'm going to show you now what I've got on vinyl, though it's not an Elvis album, but it's very interesting. It comes from Merle Haggard, and this is Merle Haggard's My Farewell to Elvis, subtitled From Graceland to the Promised Land. And the songs on here are From Graceland to the Promised Land, which was written by Merle Haggard, and it's a very touching tribute to the King of Rock and Roll, who had recently departed when this album came out. This album was, of course, released in 1977, not long after Elvis had died. Then we've got cover versions, Merle Haggard's cover version of Elvis's songs. So we've got In the Ghetto, Don't Be Cruel, Jailhouse Rock, Love Me Tender, That's Alright, Heartbreak Hotel, Blue Christmas, Blue Suede Shoes, You're Lonesome Tonight, and another original track called Merle's Farewell to Elvis. This is quite a rare record, and the copy I've got is in reasonably good condition. Well, so that's basically my limited Elvis vinyl collection, although I am going to get a lot more Elvis vinyl. The albums I've got on CDs and I definitely want to get on vinyl would be the 68 Comeback Special album from Elvis in Memphis. I want to get on vinyl. There's Elvis, the country album. I really like that album. There are many. Elvis's second album, I've got a wonderful CD copy of that, again from Folly a Dream, and it's packaged together with Elvis's first and his second album in the one package. I really want to get that on vinyl. I've got his first album on vinyl. But anyway, that's it for now. Just a quick thing. The video was supposed to be about Epic, Baz Luhrmann's Epic, the Elvis Presley in concert movie. This is the soundtrack CD. Looking forward to the vinyl arriving. But anyway, that's great. Thanks for watching. Cheers, Yaki Da. Please subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and leave a comment below.